Awesome.
Cool. So one of the questions we wanted to throw out to everyone is, how confident are you feeling about your real estate assets and how you're protecting them? So just something to think about as we go through the webinar and the different details and maybe some nuances that you haven't thought about previously. You can go ahead and keep rolling through these.
Awesome. And for everyone today, we are going to make this an interactive conversation. So feel free to answer that poll, and moving right along, we'll jump into some intros, get everyone in the know here, and then we'll kick it off with Cheri's presentation.
All right. Yeah, I'm Kristi Kandel. I've been in real estate development for nearly 20 years, working across the country on projects big and small. And about a year ago, we started Local Real Estate Developers to be a way to help inspire and to help guide just regular people in your towns through your own real estate development projects so that you can be the local developer in your community. So we're leveraging our experience and expertise to be able to guide you through these.
Awesome. Kristi's got a long list of things she's not bragging about, but the years of experience she has have been such an inspiration to me. Hi, guys. I'm Lynn Makela. I started as a marketing professional over the last career trained 20 years of figuring that out, and then decided at some point that that was not going to be a path I wanted to continue on. Long nights, long days, and lots of time working for somebody else. So I am based in Upper Michigan, and before COVID, we actually bought a cabin, and it accidentally turned us into a hospitality business process, because we then bought 10 more cabins after we rehabbed those and understood the value of Airbnb. Now I've grown into, thanks much to Kristi and a lot of other wonderful people, an emerging developer with a growing portfolio and a really fun project where I'm working on transforming a local property that hasn't been used for more than 8 years into a bar and a sauna facility, and giving our community a place to go and hang out around our beautiful waterfront property that has just been a sore sight in the community for a while. So excited to share that, and glad to be here, and really excited to learn more from Cheri, because I've heard so many wonderful things. And so Cheri, take it away with your introduction.
All right, so Cheri Hill, I'm in Reno, Nevada. So I've been known as the Wealth Protection Diva. I've got 32 years of experience as a business strategist. So my company, Sage International, we just kicked 32 years. And what I've been doing for these past 3 decades is working with a lot of mainly real estate investors to really help them understand how to protect their assets. And that's a lot of what we're talking about today. I do a weekly radio show that turns then into a podcast. I'm just got a lot of information related to how to effectively start a business, grow a business, and now, with so many years, exit a business. So I've been really, I would say, one of the foremost individuals who have really helped a lot of entrepreneurs across our nation, that backbone of America. So I've been on this soapbox about being an entrepreneur versus being a W-2 for decades. And so I'm just so glad to be here. And Lynn, nice to meet you. Kristi, thank you again. And that's it.
Love it. And I love the way you're able to break it down to where a normal person can understand and you don't talk over our heads. So very excited. And then, yeah, if anyone wants to grab this, this is a free download that we have that gives you 10 reasons why you should be a local real estate developer. And it'll actually put you into a funnel where there's different case studies and different tools that we'll give you away all for free. So go ahead and scan that QR code if you'd like, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
That code will also be in the presentation. After you guys receive it, you'll receive a follow-up after this with the video. So if you couldn't grab it, we'll have plenty of chances for you to snag that in the future.
All right, so this is me.
Yep, you're up. Take it away, Cheri.
Okay. So when we talk about, any kind of investing or building wealth, creating wealth, the one thing that you need to understand is that there are always, the more wealth you create, there are more serious threats to your wealth. So the more money you make, the more other people want it. And so I kind of break it down to, as you can see, this whole long list of all the ways that you have liability exposure, from vehicle accidents to damage around your home or business. Obviously, Kristi, you in Florida and all the things going on there with natural disasters and everything that can cost you your wealth. But more important, as a business owner, as a real estate investor, you are a business owner. And so the types of things you would potentially experience would be breach of contract disputes. If you hire people, disgruntled employees, you have lots of reasons, you as an individual, whether catastrophic illness, disability, job loss, negligence, all those things that actually are designed to come after your wealth. And of course, number one is usually divorce, because I don't know of anybody that walked away with 100% of their assets after divorce. And then I also always want to mention the 2021 Corporate Transparency Act that took effect January of this year, 2024. So every single individual who owns an LLC or a corporation has to file a beneficial ownership information report with the federal government. This is not a state thing, it's a federal thing. If you don't know what that is, you need to get on it, because you only have until December 31 to register. I can answer more questions about that later. Next. So who needs asset protection? Obviously, anyone with money, those high income, high net worth clients. But if you own a residence, if you own any kind of a boat, automobile, motorcycle, anything that's on the highways or the roads, if you have vacation rentals, Airbnb, short-term rentals, any kind of investment property with tenants, of course, animals, horses, cows, goats, honeybees. I have honeybees, I'm a beekeeper, a vicious dog that bites, and of course, teenage children. So when I talk about who needs it, so if you have any type of asset, now when you look at those assets, including your teenage children, they are the liability, right? So now we've taken it away from me as an individual being liable, or the creation of the liability, to what are all the things that I own that could also create liability. Fact is, 50,000 lawsuits are filed in this country every single day. That doesn't mean you're at fault. That doesn't mean that you created something, but people are getting sued for all kinds of reasons, and it happens every single day. And so that explosion of lawsuits, we are the most litigious nation in the world. You have to protect yourself. Next. So the reason that people are named as defendants in lawsuits is because of their ability to pay. In other words, you become a deep pocket defendant. The more assets, the more insurance, the more everything you have, you are now considered a deep pocket defendant. And obviously, the legal system has no effective means of discouraging abusive lawsuits. So again, those 50,000 lawsuits filed every day, some are very frivolous, some do have merit, but they're coming after you because you have the ability to settle or pay a judgment. Next.
Do you come into play when those are happening, or do you mostly just work with people to help prevent that and to put the layers in?
All levels.
Okay.
I can share a story if you'd like.
I love stories. It helps kind of make it relatable.
So let's go back to the vicious dog that bites, right? So I had a client come in, or a prospect, never met the guy. He came in, he owns about 8 properties here in northern Nevada. And he was freaked out because he was getting sued. And so about 3 years ago, now remember, lawsuits don't just happen when the incident occurs, right? It takes time for discovery and everything to figure out if he was worth suing. So he had a tenant on one of his properties. That tenant had a dog. The tenant's friend came to visit, and the dog attacked her and literally tore off her arm. Yes, her arm. So the tenant, of course, bolts, right? They're not coming after him because he owns nothing. And so they're suing the landowner because he rented the property to this guy with this dog. And fortunately, it's all been settled, but he came to me because he owned all these properties in his personal name. So I very quickly formed a series LLC, got all of his other properties taken care of. They did settle. Now he can sleep at night. But people always say, oh, Cheri, this never happens. You talk about all this liability. Every single day, I'm talking to someone who's freaked out or has an issue because we never know where it's coming from. So, thank you. So, how do we make sure that we really start to protect your assets? So, the premise of asset protection is to isolate all those streams of revenue into different entities. So, when you look at how do you hold title to your home, your investment property, your stocks and mutual funds, your life insurance, your bank accounts, all those planes, boats, automobiles, everything, anything that has significant value, you need to look at how do you hold title. Excuse me. So obviously in this realm, we're talking a lot about real estate. So I know people, they go form an LLC, they stick 15 properties under the same LLC, they have accomplished nothing, right? Depending on the state where the property is held, we have different strategies. In the state of Florida, having a single member LLC is not effective. We always need LLCs that have two people partnerships, right? How we get around that is the strategy. California, states like that, where, you know, every time we form an LLC, you have to pay a minimum of $800 to the state of California. But I look at that and go, that's the cost of doing business. Show me a lawsuit that costs less than $800. So I'm doing this right now with a client. He owns almost all of South Lake Tahoe. I'm forming 16 LLCs for him as we speak, because he owns apartment complexes, he owns motels, he owns investment real estate, and I don't want to stick lumps of property under one LLC to save $800, right? Depending on the state, depending on where you live, sometimes I will put more than one property under an LLC. It just depends on how much equity is in that real estate, because that's what we look at. What do people come after? Your equity. So lots of ways that we get around all the different oddities of each state. But bottom line, if you're owning real estate in your personal name, you are a huge target. If you own multiple properties under the same LLC, you didn't accomplish much. And again, it's something that we would have to talk about. So this is what we look at. How do you hold your assets? What can we do legally that will protect those assets? Next. So one thing, asset protection is an ongoing process. I know people that go, oh, I'm going to form this entity and I never have to think about it again. And that's not true, especially Kristi, the people in your world, obviously as developers or continually adding new developments or more real estate. And so strategy morphs with my clients. So where we start today, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road, that strategy looks different. Entities come, entities go, new entities are developed. So we have to always be looking at what it is that we can do to make sure that you're fully protected today. And so it's really thinking about what's the end goal, right? I said I do a lot of work now with exit strategy. Even more interesting is I am now helping a lot of my original clients, their kids, because now they're becoming entrepreneurs. So that dates me, but that's fact. And so it's a lot of fun. So
At least they're starting properly from the beginning.
Well, exactly. So it's, what are those goals? If I'm going to buy a piece of property and I'm going to turn around and sell it in 2 months, then maybe not depending again on the state, do I use entities or do I do something different? So the real key for me is, when is the best time to begin your asset protection plan? It's yesterday. And what I don't want is people calling me because they're all panicked and they haven't done anything. And yet we make it so easy to get everything structured so that you can sleep at night because you're doing the right things for the right reasons, in the right state, taxed in the right way. Next.
All right, so here's our next poll question, guys, and it's, what phase of wealth are you currently focused on? So it's thinking about, are you building multiple streams of income, whether it's through companies or different properties or developments? Are you at a point where you want to preserve your wealth, or do you want to leverage it for legacy planning? So just more thinking about the future and what you're building this all into.
We needed an all of the above.
Yeah, exactly. Looks like building multiple streams of income, which I was just listening to a podcast where I think it said the average millionaire has at least 4 streams of income, which is great because if you have some completely wiped out, you still have other ways to make money. So very cool.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the 3 phases of wealth. So we can go to the next slide. So phase 1, over the course of the years, I really started to build out what does it look like? And that's why I coined the term, the 3 phases of wealth, because in the first phase, this is where the poll, 75% are in that beginning phase of understanding, how do I want to create wealth, right? So this period of time, and there is no timeline. This could be 1 year for some people. It could be 15 years for others. You never know. But when you look at it, this is the fun, the exciting, the passionate side of wealth creation, because you figured out, do I want to invest in real estate? Am I going to buy a franchise and become a business owner? Am I going to work from home? Am I going to create patents where now I have intellectual property where I can create royalties or licensing agreements? Am I going to invest in the stock market? Am I going to take my area of expertise and become a consultant or a coach? Am I going to work in direct sales? I have friends that are doing very well in doTERRA and Melaleuca and a lot of those different direct sales organizations. Do I have some other great idea for starting a business? And so there is no one size fits all. Everyone has to be passionate about how they want to create wealth. Of course, those multiple streams of income. So in my company, Sage International, I'm constantly looking at, how do I create additional streams of revenue? So what areas of expertise can we now utilize within our own organization? So for example, I do a lot of deed work around the nation for lawyers, because when they form living trusts for their clients, they can only record deeds in a state where they're licensed to practice law. And so they send me all this deed work on the East Coast because everyone owns a home in Florida or Massachusetts or Vermont or wherever. And so I do deeds all over the country. And that over the last 3 years has really exploded into a very nice stream of revenue. Why that makes sense for me, as I was an escrow officer for 10 years in the state of California back in my previous life. So it was not a big step for me to go, gee, I know how to do deeds, right? The weirdness is every county in the nation is different. So it takes some work. So during this, you're really deciding, whether you want to create ordinary income, which is W-2, passive income, which is rents, royalties, or portfolio income, which is your stocks, dividends, that kind of stuff. And it really matters when we form entities to understand the type of income, whether it's ordinary, passive, or portfolio, so that we build the right strategy around it. And that really is more related to taxes, right? So at this time, you really have to be clear on money habits. I always cracks me up because people are like, oh, I don't like to do my financials and I suck at financials and all this. And it's like, well, the moment you form a company, you don't become brilliant, right? And so if you have issues, your money habits aren't solid, stepping into a business, you have to really work on making sure that you understand what the financials are, cash flow, how to read financial statements, how to know if you're making money, right? And where you're spending money that you shouldn't. Also, if you want to be an investor, you have to have discretionary income as well. And so if you're spending money on Starbucks at $5 a day, that's money you could be putting towards a future. So all the other, spiritual, why are you creating wealth? This is a question I ask a lot of people, and you really have to think about it. Is it to, create legacy? Is it to build passive income so you can get out of the rat race? Is it so that you can give back to society? You have charitable ideas and ways that you want to give back. And so there's a lot of reasons to create wealth. And just having money is not really an answer. There has to be a bigger purpose. Health habits. If you're unhealthy, creating wealth, so by the time you actually get it and you're dead, doesn't help either. So what are you doing today so that all this hard work and all this wealth you're creating, you're going to be able to enjoy later in life? And of course, continuing education. Kristi, this is awesome because, whatever your passion, whatever you decide you're going to create wealth through, understanding and mastering that information is critical. So continuing education, I figured I would probably at some point die in a seminar with a pen in my hand, right? Because it's like, I never stop learning and I love it. So personal, professional development, you have to be a visionary, a big thinker. Think about, your time and energy management so that you're focusing on what I call the fastest path to cash. What can you be doing today? What do you need to focus on so that you stay on point? And then, of course, the importance of building relationships and your network. Very important because you never burn bridges. You never know who's going to help you in the long run. And it's amazing how some of these relationships circle back around because now you're ready for them, right? Business versus personal credit. I mean, if you don't have good credit, good luck trying to get out there and borrow money and do all those kinds of things. So if you need to work on your credit, now is the time. And then also budgeting, of course, training and managing your own mind, right? And so I talk a lot about that just in life, right? Is you're in control of your own destiny. And so you need to really make sure that you're on point, focused, that visionary big thinker, and not causing yourself to hold back, right? Because you don't believe in yourself, you don't trust in yourself. All those managing of your own mind, especially when you're in wealth creation, is critical. If anyone else can do it, so can you. So
That's exactly right. For reference, I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and our financial education consisted of don't go into debt, very much Dave Ramsey style, and have a great credit score. But beyond that, it was, okay, well, as we start to go and grow, how does this all happen and how does it all connect? And at first, I remember when I was talking to asset protection people, it would sail right over my head. So Just know that the more you can expose yourselves to this, the more it starts to just make sense and be familiar for where you're at on your level. And you have people like Cheri who can continuously help you as you level up throughout. So you don't have to know it all. We just want to get you guys exposed so you start to understand the language and what's happening.
Exactly. And there's a difference between good credit and bad credit. So you've learned that. All right, so phase 2, this is asset preservation, so keeping what you've worked so hard to accumulate, right? And so this is really understanding through risk assessment, where is your liability exposure? Where do you have the most issues with potential economic loss? And so this is looking at your whole life, your hobbies, everything to go, where do I have risk? And that's where I come in a lot, right? Because obviously owning real estate and developing properties and things like that, there is more risk than if I just sat on my couch and watched television. Advanced planning, this is the tax and legal side, so that while you're working hard, you're not giving it all away to Uncle Sam or the lawyers. Equity stripping, that's a strategy that I used to use a lot in the past. Again, how you hold title to your assets. Income splitting, this is where multiple entities come in. I do a lot with where we'll use a Nevada or Wyoming entity with a business in California or New York where they have high taxes, and we can shift income over to a no tax state. Obviously, all types of insurance, right? So your first line of defense and asset protection is the entity. The second line is your insurance, making sure that you're covered in whatever way necessary, so that if there is a lawsuit or something, at least you have the insurance and can help you settle or do whatever is necessary. Asset allocation, not all your eggs in one basket, right? So again, when I talk about people, they form an LLC, they stick 10 properties under it, that is not effective. So we look at, again, what are those streams of revenue? What do we need to isolate? And we start to make sure that you have a really solid strategy. Understanding about also estate planning. So living trusts and irrevocable trusts, how those fit into your strategy, especially if you own properties in multiple states. Then if you don't have any kind of a living trust, a contract that says, here's what's supposed to happen if something happens to me, then you end up with a probate in multiple states. You talk about lose assets quickly, that's how you do it. So everything we look at is tax reduction, asset protection, and estate planning. So numbers don't lie, cash is king. So having liquidity, this is the biggest push right now. You know, a lot of people need liquidity because we don't know what's going to happen through this election. We don't know anything that's going to happen in the financial world. And so you need to be somewhat prepared and have some liquidity, however you do that, right? And then using other people's money, of course, we talked about, you know, good debt versus bad debt. Using other people's money is often good debt. And so it's a way you can accelerate what it is that you're doing. Of course, paying down your debt is critical, right? Especially now with all these high interest rates. So you have to make sure that you're in position. People always talk about, well, how do the rich get richer? It's because when there's opportunity, they're prepared. They have liquidity. They don't have a lot of debt. They are ready to pounce on whatever that opportunity. And a lot of others are not. And then they go, gee, I wish, right? And so really looking at your life and how you're creating your ability to be ready when an opportunity shows up is all related to how much debt, your credit, all of that kind of stuff. Retirement planning, are you taking advantage of those? 401ks, IRAs. I love health savings accounts, especially for young people. You can build that. You can even invest out of those. They're amazing. And so if your company doesn't offer, or you're starting a business, this is one of the first things I did when I first started Sage International, is so that one, we could attract good employees, but also really take advantage of tax reduction. And then developing your exit strategy. So phase 2, asset preservation, you have to have kind of a future goal in mind. What am I going to do with all this wealth, right? How do I make sure that, one, I'm keeping it, but also how do I preserve it and protect it going forward? This period of time, I say there's faith, patience, and perseverance. You got to just stay the course. You got to believe in yourself, and you have to have patience, because if you're focused on it, it's going to show up for you. So, all right.
100% to all three of those.
Yeah. So during this time, what most people are looking at is really, you know, security and just feeling good about what you're doing and knowing that you've done everything you can to protect your wealth. Continuing your personal and professional development, of course. It doesn't get easier the more wealth you have, it gets harder. Knowing when tax laws are changing, knowing that your risk is expanding, and just things change, right? The environment changes, regulations change, all kinds of stuff changes. So always working on understanding what's happening. Surrounding yourself with expert advisors and mentors, right? I mean, this is so critical. I would not be where I am today if I did not have outstanding mentors. And my mentors were in the world of business development, taxation, estate planning, nonprofit. I do a ton in the nonprofit world. And so really focusing on those types of things that I wanted to understand and surrounding myself with those experts really accelerated my learning curve, right? Now I'm in a position, I'm a mentor, right? Because I get it, right? I understand the timeline of thinking and visualizing a business to exiting a business and everything in between. So it's a lot of fun. Know your personal earning power. We call that your PEP. Obviously, when you're in your 20s, your 30s, and your 40s, you have a lot of personal earning power. You have the energy and the time and the drive, where I now am, I'm never going to climb Mount Everest, right? I'm on the backside going, I don't need all that, right? I'm really looking at how do I work smarter, not harder. I mean, I've been there a long time, but during the early years, I mean, I worked hard, right? And now I really enjoy thinking time and just making sure that my day is not packed full, right? Because I get tired. So personal earning power, while you're young, even through your 50s, right? You have to know that that's your time slot to get it done. Risk-taking skills, you know, it's all about risk, right? And so if you struggle with worry and all that kind of stuff, then perhaps creating wealth and doing all that is not really right for you. Get a W-2 job, right? Create your bucket list. What's important to you and your significant other? This is I do a really fun process with couples that really helps them understand how to align together so that you're working together on your vision and your goals and taking into account what's important to each other. Because when you create wealth, it really helps if you're both on the same page, right? And that really helps to eliminate a lot of issues and divorce and things, because if you have someone who's really like, I want to build and create wealth, and you have someone who likes, all I want is security, I'm not interested in all that risk, there's going to be a problem. And so you have to deal with it and talk about it and align with what matters. Next. All right, we're jumping into phase 3. You don't have a question or anything? Okay. All right.
Wait,
So,
yes,
I mean, we have plenty of questions.
Yeah,
Go for it, Lynn.
No, do you want to start? Go ahead.
Nope, go for it.
No, I was just thinking about what you were saying about just in terms of bucket list creation, getting on the same page, security. What do you have like tips, or do you take people? It's almost I think you're maybe a marriage counselor in addition to an asset protection attorney. Is that kind of what I'm picking up?
Well, I have conversations with a lot of couples because realistically, yeah, you do have to be on the same page. And so just sitting down and really thinking about what matters to each and then coming together to talk about that saves a lot of time and energy. And so these are conversations to have way early in a relationship, right? This isn't something you do 15 years into the marriage. It's right up front because that's part of being in a great marriage. It's not just about likes and dislikes. It's what do we see for our future and how do we want to get there? And
I
so,
really
yeah,
do wonder how many active couples at that stage talk about it, because it literally, I
they
do think
don't.
15 years to to have that
They
conversation.
don't. And I learned that from one of the most brilliant financial advisors. Again, one of my mentors that really helped his clients understand and master that right up front. So
That's
yeah, I
awesome.
do a lot. I do a lot. I mean, yes, I talk about, I form entities and stuff, but there's so much in the conversations leading up to the strategy. And that's why it's still fun for me. And I love what I do because I'm helping. Everyone is unique and different. There is no cookie cutter, right?
No one size fits all for any person
Mhm.
or any people we're looking to achieve a goal.
Exactly. All right. So phase 3, leveraging your wealth. Leveraging is one of my favorite words. And legacy planning. So now, this is later in life. Obviously, you've created wealth, you've got discretionary income, you're kicking back, maybe you're retired. It just depends on where you are in your life that you now are ready to start thinking about, gee, what happens if something happens to me, right? And so this is where trusts really become important. A lot of other ways that people can move a lot of wealth out of their estate is through family foundations or donor advised funds. These are through typically a community foundation so that you can move it out of your estate, but you still control, right? Setting up nonprofits because you want to do a lot of give back, teaching children to be good stewards with the money. I spent about 5 years really in the family foundation realm to really understand, like a lot of money, right? We're talking millions and millions. And how are they teaching the children and then the grandchildren to be good stewards of the money? And it was just absolutely fascinating how well they do. And so these aren't trust babies. Okay. These are people that are got the money in foundations. They put that money to work, but how do you preserve that legacy and the principle and all the stuff that you need to do so you can keep doing the good work? Of course, there's lots of tax avoidance techniques, 1031s, installment sales, deferred sales trusts. So a lot of people that are in real estate, once they're reaching a point where they're like, I'm done with real estate. How do I move? I don't want to use a 1031 because I end up in real estate again, right? So there are lots of other techniques that we can use to move that money in a way that you still have full access to it, but you're pushing the tax liability out as far as you can. Obviously, there's gifting and discounting to family members. That's usually done through LLCs and limited partnerships. Of course, life insurance, mergers and acquisitions, right? So if you built a really successful company, you don't just walk away. You see if there's someone willing to buy it or merge or take it over, or whatever. And also acquiring, because this is a way a lot of, when you accelerate, right? So, I mean, I remember a time I had a lot of young guys, right? So they all pooled their money and basically they didn't go out and buy single family homes. They went out and bought apartment complexes. Then you 1031 up into bigger, right? And so again, accelerating wealth is fun to watch. Of course, you can go public or franchise, and then licensing intellectual property. You've created some pretty decent techniques or trademarks or things like that where somebody might be interested. And then also the give back where you can become an angel investor, a mentor, and then global opportunities because the world is flat. So at legacy planning phase 3, I mean, it's really now you can't take it with you. So what are you going to do? Right. And this is a time where, you've done all your hard work. Now it's time to give back, potentially become a mentor, enjoy life, right? Because you've worked hard for it. I've always been fascinated by the people that say, oh, you start a business and you got to work 80 hours a week. Never. I never did. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, no weekends.
Are you saying you had boundaries?
Total boundaries and trained. No one has my cell number, right? So it's like I built that model for my business and everyone that works for me so that we can enjoy life at the same time, because it is about enjoying life. I am not going to work that hard and die early.
100%. No, 100%.
It has to be fun,
and that's
right?
That's why a lot of people are going, wait, okay, I bought all of these smaller rentals, or I created a flipping business, or I did these things that I'm kind of trapped in, to where now they're considering development because it does have higher returns and it's a better use of your time from the time and the money you get out of it standpoint. So this is just a great way to help create that quality of life that you truly want, while, improving your community.
Exactly. And that quality of life is, once you have created the wealth and you're doing your legacy planning, that's where a lot of give back comes in. So it's really fun.
And it might feel like it's super far away, guys, but it's really not, because I bought my very first property in 2017, and I hit a point in 2021 where I never had to work for anyone again because I had the assets and the cash flow. So it feels like a long time. It feels like it could be a long grind, but it doesn't have to actually take that long. And so just thinking about what you want on the back end and the legacy you'll create and what you'll do with that really helps define what you're doing today and how you've shaped that future too.
And focus.
Yeah.
Once you focus on it, then, you're not scattered all around, right? Yeah. So, all right, next slide. Right. So phase 3, what most people have to be feeling or understanding is, safety and security, right? So again, asset protection, making sure that you're keeping everything you've worked so hard to create, and surrounding yourself with expert advisors. See, that doesn't change throughout this entire process, right? And the more wealth you have, the more experienced expert advisors you need, because now you're dealing with estate planning, financial planning, wealth planning, legacy planning. And again, every time we get new administration at the presidential level, things change. And so the estate plan, depending on who gets in office, is either going to stay where it's at, or it's going to come back to where you're going to start paying estate taxes at about, if you have wealth, at about $7 million, right? And so it becomes a constant, you have to be looking at it and changing and adapting as necessary.
Exactly. This is not static. Yeah. It is completely fluid. And that's just like, you should talk to your CPA and have strategy. You should talk to your legal team or experts like Cheri to just constantly go, okay, does this strategy still work for now? Or do we need to make pivots and adjustments?
Exactly. Executing your exit strategy, because now is the time, right? You want to enjoy, you want to travel, you want to do whatever. It's how are you going to do that effectively without giving it all to Uncle Sam? There's a lot of time where community service comes in, because you have the ability and the time and the energy to give back. Charitable giving, we talked about, and then communicating your final wishes, making sure it's in writing, and Wills are not effective. And so I'm a huge proponent of living trusts because they solve so much. And but understanding that the people around you understand what those final wishes are, so that you make it easier for them and you're not struggling or making them struggle because you're not here to know what the struggle is. So huge. All right, next. Are we ready for me to keep going? Yes.
Yeah, let's go
Okay.
ahead and do that from a timing standpoint, and then we'll ask questions at the end.
Okay. So one of the tools, obviously, that I use a lot is the limited liability company. And Kristi, you wanted me to share, why, right? So one nice thing about the LLC is it really came into being to kind of reduce the need for S corporations and limited partnerships and the disadvantages of those compared to how flexible the LLC is. So the number one advantage is it's in the name. Members are free from personal liability. It's limited liability. So meaning that if something happens within the business, they can't just step through and go after all your personal assets. Flexible ownership, you can have one member to an unlimited number of members, and there's no restrictions as to who can own an LLC. And an S Corp, only an individual can be a shareholder. In an LLC, I can have other LLCs, corporations, trusts, individuals who can all be members, and the profit and loss and the tax liability flows down to them. Flexible management, it can be member or manager managed. A good example, manager managed, I imagine, Kristi, in your world of development, you have pools of people that come together and they become the cash, right? And then they select a manager to run that LLC who now has authority to sign documents and do everything without having to drag everybody else onto the signing table. So if you're a husband and wife, manager managed doesn't always make sense. It depends on the state. If I'll use manager or member managed, because being manager managed is not disclosing ownership. Distributions, you can divide the profits and losses in a flexible manner, which is really nice because depending on who the members are and their tax liabilities currently, you don't always have to throw more tax liability onto them. So really flexible in that regard. We get to choose how an LLC can be taxed. So if you're a single member, it's disregarded, just flows down to you to report and pay on your personal tax return. 2 or more is a partnership. So at the end of the year, the LLC files an info return. K1s are then sent to each partner to report on and pay on their personal return. We can elect S or C Corp status. So I do that a lot for businesses, right? If you're a plumber, a CPA, somebody doing that kind of any kind of a business, then we want to take advantage of C or S Corp status. And we can do it all out of the LLC. So that's beautiful. And then estate planning, you can control and protect your assets and then pass them on to those you love. Your living trust can be the member. So now we've already built in the probate and estate planning aspects into the LLC. So they're just really an awesome, awesome tool. When I started Sage International, LLCs didn't exist, right? So we were limited to limited partnerships, corporations and S Corps and trusts. But this is the go-to entity for the last couple of decades. So next slide. So the other beautiful tool that's only been around for probably about 15 or so years really being used, I use these a ton for my real estate investors, is the Series LLC. And there's only about 14 to 15 states more are adopting. I think I've probably formed the first Series LLC in just about every state. So it's fun. But the beautiful thing is when I talk about old way of asset protection, where every time we added a property, we had to form a new LLC, right? So we keep that asset protection. The Series LLC is one limited liability company, one federal tax ID number, and basically through the documents and state statutes, I can drop each property. So as you look, Series 1 is investment property 1. Series 2 is number 2, on and on we go. There's no limit. I have some clients, they have 27 series in their Series LLC. Each cell, I call them, holds a property. And the beautiful thing is if there's an issue on cell 1, series 1, that liability doesn't transfer over to 2 or 3 and beyond, right? And so it really solved the need to have multiple LLCs. And so if I have a real estate investor that is buying properties in a state that authorizes the Series LLC, I will never file anything less than a Series LLC. Unless they say, I'm only going to buy this one property. I'm never going to buy any more. Then I'll stick them in a regular LLC, right? But these are fantastic. And really, there was a lot of issues around, well, people don't understand them. And I know banks still don't understand them. But guess what? I understand them. And so I know how to create them. I know how to keep them maintained. Every time we're adding a property, I'm building the next set of documents, and I'm also a lot of times titling the real estate correctly under that series, right? That cell. These are awesome. I use these a lot, so I have a lot of investors, right? So I create a series LLC for each investor. Then when they go buy properties together, I'll take one of their cells, so one from each, and now that's what goes out and buys the real estate. So now, usually in another LLC, right? So now we've got LLC asset protection. Who's the owner? Oh my gosh, it's a series, a sell out of their Series LLC. So now we have asset protection at the owner level, and on we go. They're fantastic. I love them. And I probably would consider myself the expert in the nation on Series LLCs.
So question on a couple of states that we're working in, and I think I know most of the answers, but are Nevada, Ohio, Michigan, and Florida. Which of those would be Series LLC states?
Nevada, Ohio, just came on board. Florida does not have them. I don't know. Michigan might. I don't know. But anytime, somebody said, then I go out and research to see if they do in fact have them. And every state is different, as far as how we have to structure the series. And so I have to go out and read all the statutes and make sure all the documents match the statutes and everything. So,
and that's part of yours, like while you would prefer to set stuff up from the start, anyone can give you a call at any stage in their journey and go, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's what I have. Can you give me some advice on how to structure that? And is there a free consultation? Do you charge? What's the best way for them to approach and start that?
I always do a free 30-minute consultation up front just to get a baseline of where somebody is. I do a ton of cleanup. I mean, I clean up a lot of stuff out there. So you can come to me and then I'm going to really look at what you're doing, how are you doing it? Is there something that we could be doing better or easier? Clean up stuff, get rid of entities you're not using. And so, so by the time we're done, everyone's on the same page and you've got the best strategy possible.
So love it.
So I work with people, in a lot of different ways. So one of the things I want to mention is adhere to all formalities. I just worked with a client who formed a corporation like 17 years ago, in the state of Nevada. He put an apartment complex in Oakland, California in it, which is fine. Would never do that strategy today, but he let the entity go. And so we had to do a complete revival in the state of Nevada. It cost him close to $15,000 to get that entity back on track. If he had just let us do the annual filings and everything we need to do every year to make sure it stays current, you don't end up with big issues down the road. So this is part of our service, right? Helping to keep the entity current. You, as a business owner, as someone who has entities, you have to pay your tax. You have to file your taxes, right? You have to pay your taxes, if any. You have to comply with all the local, state, and federal laws, and you want to make sure that you've got proper documentation. We talk about the corporate veil or the LLC veil. The only way that stands is if you're treating the entity like a separate legal entity, and that means paperwork and minutes and resolutions and never commingling the funds and treating it like the separate entity that you want it to be. Next slide. Oh, that's you guys. So back to the formalities. So as a commercial registered agent in all 50 states, we do and handle all of the annual filings. We make sure that your minutes and resolutions are done every year. We do all kinds of stuff, whether it's DBAs or anything related to the entity, amendments and foreign qualifications and whatever it is, dissolutions, and we do all 50 states. So we make sure that if you're using the entity, it's current. If you're not using the entity, let's dissolve it.
And I have a question for you. I have more layers to it, but let's say generally, because I just had a friend in California get hit by a drunk driver who was uninsured. But I guess that would be the opposite if they were the one. So let's say she was the one who hit someone and caused that. How does this asset protection all play out from properties, your personal? Can it cross over into other stuff?
Well, that's why we have the entities. So they can't just step through an entity and take those assets, right? So there's two types of liability: internal. So the asset held within the LLC is creating the liability, or external. I, the owner, go out and get into some kind of a car accident. And so now I have to deal with that personally. But that's the beauty of these entities, is they can't just step through and go after everything you own.
Okay, so then let's take that one step further. Let's say so for example, I have a property in Tahoe and a property in Florida that are in a trust. They're in the same, there's an LLC and a trust, and I forget which comes first. So however that is. And the reason I do that is because they're multifamily. And so I do run out one side, but I live in the other. But they're in the same one. So let's say I go out driving and I unfortunately kill someone or severely, hurt someone. Do the trusts provide that same level of protection? It doesn't, right? Okay. Because then now that's you personally, but me as a member into other developments or LLCs, those properties would be protected. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because again, whatever you're doing out there was not the cause of the liability, right? Sometimes what I'll do, especially California, is we'll form in Nevada and then foreign qualify in California. So you have the Nevada laws, right? We have outstanding asset protection laws in this state. And so it just depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it, where we may add that extra piece of asset protection. Sometimes we don't need to. Again, it's all state driven. Where is the asset? And then what are the laws in that state? And, California is not, they don't have the laws like we do in Nevada. So, and we're right next door.
That's where knowing people like you and understanding here's your whole scenario, and then you can take that and go, here's the best strategy for you based on all of these factors. I love that. It provides such a level of comfort knowing that there's people like you out there that can make sense of it all, make it make sense to us, and it just adds so much value. So thank you for everything that you have done your entire career and that you continue to do with
Thank
excellent
you.
boundaries.
Thank you.
Awesome. And yeah, here's Cheri's information, guys. She is amazing. She is the go-to person. It doesn't matter where in the country you are. Definitely we'll include this in the PowerPoint so they can have your information, and we're putting this into our community as well, so they know that. So you'll probably get several people reaching out to you to give you a chat.
Well, I would hope so, because, you know, my biggest issue always is we do things like this and then I don't hear from people. Because one, they think they can do it on their own, or two, they think they can do it on their own. So don't.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Go to Cheri, ask all the questions. Yes. All right, Lynn, take it away.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Cheri. So much knowledge in that conversation. And yes, probably way more covered than I was even ready for today. So thank you so much. I will be one of those people following up and not following up. So,
All right. Very good. Very good.
thank you. Thank you. And also everyone today, thank you so much for attending and learning along with us and helping others in our local developer community get an understanding of what it takes to be a developer. So if you're ready to take the move from real estate investor maybe, or from W-2 worker that's ready to cut loose and ditch the 9 to 5, we have created a course just for you. It's called the Blueprint for Local Real Estate Development. It is essentially a tool to help you decide whether or not development is a path that would be right for you. And it's not for everyone. It's not get rich quick. This is not some kind of like money-making scheme. This is years and years and years of information and data and expertise kind of laid out so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not you'd like to transfer buildings in your community, build self-storage, you know, create structures for development and commercial and residential use. So you can use this QR code right here. And if you go to the next slide, Cess, thank you so much. You can find out a little bit more about our course. We will have checklists and templates in here. There's also insights and tips. There's tons of case studies you'll learn alongside Kristi, myself, and others who are on the development journey, and also some bonus materials. Seriously, you guys, there's access to the community, unlocking of our video series, some goal setting, and some Q&A. So if you are on the fence of like, is development something that I could get into, we've got a lot more resources that you can find throughout the materials. And today only, actually for the next few days, more info on that on the next slide, you can save money. So we're going to go right to the product code, LRED October 50th. Until October 25th, you will be able to get half off of the cost of that Blueprint course. And that also, if you decide to continue on and go into the mastermind, that will be reduced from the cost of your future purchases. So we love to welcome those that are interested in pursuing development and are happy to answer any more questions. And again, Cheri, thank you so much.
Oh,
I
you're
know
welcome. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, hearing some more folks that are interested in learning more about asset protection and figuring it all out with you. And again, if anyone wants to jump into that email sequence, you can hit us with that QR code right now. Use your phone. It's not too weird. It's kind of odd on your screen, but it works pretty well. And so thankful for everyone attending with us today. So go forth, create investments, and do it with some time management skills like Cheri.
All right. Very good. All right, you
Sounds
guys. Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Cheri.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.